Planes.
You're live.
Oh, we're live. Okay, there we go. Oh my gosh. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. My name is Colin. I head up the marketing here at Freewite, and I just want to say we're glad you're here. I'll be the host for today's AMA, Ask Me Anything. And I'm joined today by Annie, our Freewite marketing manager, and by our founder and CEO, Adam Leeb. We'll do a little icebreaker amongst ourselves in a moment, but first, I want to turn the tables and ask a question to the group. Where are you watching from today, and what is your favorite place to write, and why? So, what are you watching today? Or I'm sorry, where are you watching from today, and what's your favorite place to write, and why? So, Annie's going to pin that question in chat, and while you're all doing that, I'm going to lay out a few things for our discussion today. So we're primarily focused on the history of Freewrite. In just a few weeks, we'll be celebrating our 10th anniversary. And we are taking the time to reflect back on the journey, on how we got here, and what Freewrite is and what it means today. We've sourced questions from you guys, from the community, to help get us rolling. And we're going to work through a handful of those topics on the conversation today. Those include the history of Freewrite, repairs, new features, future, a handful of other things. But I wanted to ask Annie, we're going to also be taking questions from the chat. So if you don't get a question submitted, or if you need a follow-up, please drop it in chat. She's going to be monitoring and answering those questions as she can, and bringing them up to us to discuss. So apologies in advance if we don't get to your question. We will have time after the AMA ends to drop additional answers into the comment section. So stay tuned, stay posted as we do that. And then a final word, we can't really do customer service during the call. So if you do have an order or technical question, just email our customer support team. They are at hello@getfreewrite.com. hello@getfreewrite.com. Okay. So first, I'd like to introduce the team on the call today. As I mentioned, I'm Colin. I help lead the marketing effort here at Freewrite. You've probably seen me in previous AMAs and other YouTube videos or answering customer questions online. Really grateful you're here. Excited to speak to you all today. Next up, we've got Annie. Annie is our Freewrite marketing manager. Outside of Freewrite, Annie is a published author in the YA space. She loves her dog and her dogs and dog sitting and her Irish husband. And many of her books are on Celtic lore themselves. And then finally, I'd like to introduce Adam. Adam is our Freewrite founder and CEO. Adam's lifelong passion is for creating and building things, and that led him to prototype the original Freewrite back in 2014. And as he's been reminding us in the last couple of months, I've been doing this for 10 years, but it's been a very fun and fruitful 10 years. So Freewrite has grown from a groundbreaking idea to a really beloved brand with a global community of users. So before founding Freewrite, Adam studied mechanical engineering and product design at MIT and worked in various fields. So thank you, Annie and Adam, for joining us. In addition to the three of us on the call, we also have our engineering and operations folks working on new products, answering your questions, getting orders out the door. So I'd like to thank Carolina, Heidi, Ed, Ethan, Josiah, and Dan for holding everything down for us as we do this. So, okay, now to acknowledge some of the cities and where people have been watching from us. So let's take a moment and do that. Looks like we've got New Hampshire, Texas, Minnesota, California, Norway. I think Norway wins the furthest prize, at least from here in Michigan. Great. So continue to keep dropping those in. We'll do an icebreaker for ourselves now. So for the team, we're going to ask, what is the most surprising or interesting way that you've seen someone using Freewrite? And I can go first. I remember when I had just joined the company, I was speaking to a handful of owners in just the first few months. And I remember one fellow who was actually working at a furniture store during the day, and there would be periods with no customers, and he would carry his traveler around in his back pocket. So he could just pull it out and start writing or jot down a thought in between customers. And I thought that was, just so ingenious and just a really great use of traveler and its size and form factor. Adam, do you want to tell us your story?
Yeah, this was a few years ago, but I remember getting a picture in an email of a surgeon in I can't remember where exactly, but it was somewhere in South America where he would actually take his operating room notes on a Freewrite smart typewriter, and it was this amazing picture of having a smart typewriter in the operating room, which is a little bit questionable from a sterility standpoint, but I I thought it was amazing.
It's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Um,
How about you, Annie?
I think mine. I was just talking to someone a little while back who had a long-standing pen pal, and they've been writing long emails to each other like every week for like 10 years. And he started writing all of his emails on his Freewrite, and he would use the send button to email himself a copy and forward it to his pen pal. But then we released Freewrite Plus, so he could email that letter straight to his pen pal. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great use of the tool there. Okay, well, Annie, thank you. Annie's going to drop off the video feed, but she's going to remain on the chat to answer any questions that come through. So thank you, Annie. Good to see you again.
Bye, guys.
Okay, Adam, are you ready?
Yes.
Well, let's start by answering one of the most commonly asked questions. What made you decide to create Freewrite?
Yeah. Happy to answer it. I think the origin story of Freewrite was really about almost sort of getting pulled into this world. It started with a conversation between my co-founder Patrick and I back in 2014. He was telling me about some software that he used on his computer to help him get in the flow. And so the interesting thing about his software was that it disabled the backspace key, and I just thought that was totally fascinating and something I'd never heard of before. So what during that conversation, we thought about, okay, well, if you're using this software to dumb down your computer, like maybe there's an opportunity to create something from scratch almost that sort of marries a simple writing experience from maybe some vintage computing, but still marry it with modern technology. And in that way, people could do all their drafting top to bottom on this new thing, and then they could edit later on their computer. And so it all just kind of formulated at this one moment in a conversation, and that was it. We didn't think that much about it, but it stuck in my head. And then when the opportunity arose to do something new, I was like, that's a really interesting concept. We should just put it out into the world and see what happens. And that's what we did. And the thing went viral. That was when we called it the Hemingwrite concept. And yeah, we got hundreds of thousands of hits to our little WordPress website. Got about 8,000 emails, and we're like, okay, I guess we'll see if anybody really willing to pay for this. Did the Kickstarter, December 10th, 2014, off to the races.
Great. Thanks for that. So in the last 10 years, how has Freewrite technology, both in the hardware and the software side, improved from that first design?
There's been a lot of work on the Freewrite ecosystem in the last 10 years. We've always had a really small team. And so we've had to be we've had to heavily prioritize sort of what we work on. And sort of with each new product, we've tried to build upon the lessons from the previous one. So Alpha being our newest product, I'd say it had the best quality out of the gate. It had, we had so much more knowledge about how people use these types of products, about what's important, what are the things that we can, do in a firmware update. And so I think just trying to focus on the core experience. This is something that I really try to hammer home with the team. These products are manifestations of this concept where we want people to write as much as they possibly can, where it's really about quantity even more than quality. And so when we have that value in mind, that's what dictates what we spend time on. And so we've invested heavily in improving the battery life, into making the product much more reliable, and we've redone our cloud infrastructure to make that much more reliable. And in the rare cases where people are not sure where their documents are, we're now alerting people, and we're doing backups, and there's just a lot more security and again, much more reliable infrastructure that's been built around to try and support this ecosystem where we're trying to give people as much confidence in their writing as possible, and thus allowing them to focus on just getting the words out. So that's like kind of a lot of like around it, but really it's improving the battery life, improving the screen, improving the typing experience, um, improving the cloud postbox experience, improving the firmware update experience. So all of those experiences, inch by inch, we've added those all up, and that's sort of where we are today.
Great. You mentioned like prioritization, and how do you decide like what features to include, what to work on next? Like, what are some of the ways you think about prioritizing consumer feedback or your own vision for the brand?
Well, I think that the vision for the brand is really important because I always think back to like what got us off the ground. That's the best signal we can possibly have, much more so than any one person saying, I want this. So, of course, there's groups of people that want things different or added. But again, when I think back to like what makes this product a successful product at all, or this product line a successful product, I think back to really those original pieces of the core experience that were thought about and put together at the very beginning. So again, thinking about writing productivity, and I asked myself, well, would this improve writing productivity for our customers overall? And then thinking about, okay, well, acknowledging that the concept in my head, like the concept that I agree with, I've come up with, or I don't know, just generally principle that I believe in is that there's nothing that's free. No feature is free. Even if it's something that is so small that people can ignore generally, it of course takes development time, but even if it takes minimal development time, it adds complexity. And so we have to be very careful about just adding stuff because some people could use it and everybody else could ignore it. It just doesn't work like that. That's how you get a lot of mediocre software that is bloated and doesn't work very well, frankly. So the point of that is that I'm super careful about trying to add things. I try to spend the majority of our development resources, again, on improving that core experience. How do we make the device faster? How do we make it more stable? How do we improve the syncing experience? How do we do all of those core things that are part of the value that is just absolutely at the heart of what the product is? And then maybe 10 or 20% of the time, we're doing sort of like what most people call like quality of life improvement. So things that are not like critical to your experience, but like are really nice to have, right? And so that's sort of the balance, I'd say.
Over the last 10 years, you must have heard from people that didn't know something about Freewrite that you wish they did. So, maybe one, maybe a few, but what are a few things you knew people knew about Freewrite that they might not know?
I think the thing that's hardest to communicate and what's the most valuable is sort of the prescribed workflow. And so the product, as I described in the origin story, was always designed as part of this like two-step workflow where you draft on this device and then you edit later on your computer. It was never designed and is specifically designed not to be sort of this all-in-one writing word processor. And it's hard because I understand when you see it or when you hear some of the features, you think you connect it with sort of what people connect it with, what old word processors used to be or what their computer does. And even though it's kind of that, it's not. And so the beauty of it is that the way it's designed is it has a workflow that's very streamlined and for a very specific purpose, which is to increase writing productivity. And so the workflow that we suggest is not just it is this two-step process where you draft top to bottom, but then also to enable the step two is using the cloud. And so we want this cloud synchronization experience to be as seamless as possible. And so I think a lot of people I've come to understand like use the send key, for example, on their keyboard, and they are just constantly sending themselves drafts of where they're at. And look, everyone does what they want to do, right? That's fine. However, I would just encourage people to try the prescribed experience, meaning you set up one of these 4 cloud services that we sync with: Dropbox, Evernote, Google Drive, OneDrive, and try doing sort of the more seamless experience where you don't actually have to press the send key. You just let it connect in the background and synchronize automatically, such that you're writing on your device, you're done, you can go onto your computer, open up that same draft or your series of drafts and edit there, instead of having tons of drafts in your email. So that's the prescribed workflow. Again, do what works for you, but I just want to remind everyone that that's what it was designed for. So I suggest for people to at least try it.
Great. Yeah. We had a couple questions about kind of the entrepreneurship of Freewrite. Over 10 years, there's probably been a lot of challenges. Can you think of a challenge or, one of the biggest challenges you faced while growing the company and what you did to overcome it?
There's been a few challenges in the last 10 years. They stem from nobody's an expert in everything. And I think prioritization is really challenging as well, and not knowing. So just be a little bit more specific. But for example, like creating hardware, I think one of the big challenges with creating hardware is that it requires a lot of different types of engineers and people to actually make the whole thing. So there are some people that can do a couple parts of the engineering experience, but really almost none that can do all of them. And you just can't get away from it. So you need, for example, like we work with industrial designers, with mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, firmware engineers, software engineers, production engineers, sometimes other specialty engineers like RF engineers. So to make a connected consumer electronic with a cloud backend, you need all of those things. And so it's really tricky, especially at the beginning, trying to manage having those people being available, being good at their job, knowing what they need to do exactly, and thinking about, well, should I try and hire this person in-house, or should I try to hire an expert as a contractor? I think just those types of like human resources choices are really tricky. And then of course, with any kind of product business, trying to forecast demand, ordering product early, financing. I mean, just so everyone knows, like our typical lead times when we produce product can be 6 months. I just submitted our POs for all of 2025 in the last week. And yeah, we can sometimes tweak those here and there, but that's the kind of thing that we do to sort of support our factory partners, and also so we can forecast our own budgets. But it's really tricky. These are real physical goods. There's sometimes 50 people in Asia that actually have to work together to actually make them. There's a whole supply chain. So there's just a lot of stuff that happens. And so I think of making hardware as a calling. I love it, even though it's real painful.
Got it. Well, let's look at the flip side. What has been, 10 years is a long time in a business and a career with Freewrite. What has been some of the most personally rewarding aspects of building and leading the company?
Yeah, I think in the same vein, I think I remember spending lots of time in our contract manufacturer's factory in Asia, and when those first units were coming off the line, I mean, it was something very personal. I think not just because we were able to go from literally an idea, a conversation, even before an idea, just a conversation, and take that all the way through to mass manufacturing, but even just seeing when you're on the line and seeing literally 25 people on the line plus a whole host of maybe 5 to 10 production engineers, quality people, QA people, QC people, everyone just trying to understand what you're doing and putting their heart and soul into this product that was really just literally birthed out of conversation. And so that was really rewarding. And of course, now we hear from people all the time about what the experience is like for them. And I think the goal was always to make a tool, not a toy, not to make some nostalgic thing, but actually to make something that's going to be give writers huge leverage and then unlock their ability to write. And even with that lofty ambition, you're never really sure if it's going to happen, right? I mean, we can try. I think we should try. But once people start actually writing it and saying, I had this book stuck in my head and I just could never get more than a couple thousand words done. And now with Freewrite, I'm writing 500 words a day, and I've never made more progress in my life. And I think that's just such an incredible experience to feel like you're actually supporting people express themselves.
That's awesome. Yeah, always good to hear about folks who are changing their lives or changing their perspectives on writing, and or opening up a new door for them in writing. Well, I'd like to switch gears a little bit into, we're kind of just bucketing these under general, but what device would you recommend to a beginner writer? Is there one over the other that you would recommend, and why?
So we have 3 core products: Smart Typewriter, Traveler, and Alpha. They're all beginner friendly. That's the first thing. None of them are designed to be for more serious writers or more beginner writers. There's really nothing to that. It's more about a preference for how you think you'll use the device. And so if I would just narrow it down, I think if you are generally writing in the same place ish and have occasional travel, the Smart Typewriter, the original, is still sort of the way to go. And of course, if you can afford it. If you are mostly writing traveling, then the Traveler is an excellent option. And I think if you're not sure exactly like how you'll use it, but that you want a portable distraction-free writing tool, I think that's sort of Alpha is where Alpha really comes in, because there's less of a leap with the screen. The screen is very fast. It's more something that you typically would see because we've seen these types of LCDs around us generally quite a lot. It's a little bit shorter, but again, that doesn't really matter. And it's still very portable, like a laptop. So I think Alpha is our easiest entry point. Again, it's slightly simpler in the sense that it doesn't have filters, and you can't quite see as much text on the display, but you can still see enough, and you don't really need folders. So I think it's a perfect way to sort of see if distraction-free writing is really going to be useful for you. But again, they're all beginner friendly. They're all expert friendly. They all go to the same backend. They all connect to the same cloud services. You can use all 3. We have many people that have multiple, which always shocks some of our team sometimes. I think you just kind of have to decide more about like how you think you'll use it.
Great. Yeah. We had a handful of questions about feature requests or improvements, things that are coming. Before we talk about anything specific, I want to just ask, what has been the most or a valuable piece of feedback you've gotten from a Freewrite user? What is there anything that you've spoken to someone and heard from them that has stuck with you or influenced a product decision that you can think of, either on the hardware or software side?
Yeah, I mean, we our very first in-person demo of the earliest prototype, for example, did not have page up and page down keys, and it was from a direct conversation with someone about how they write and their experience that led us to adding page up and page down keys, and realizing like, yeah, being able to review some stuff is kind of nice. That's not really a distraction. It's something that, especially if you have a really long document, it's nice to know what you just wrote. So, and there's even better reasons than that I'm not articulating very well, but that was something where just that was perfect bit of feedback, and now there's page up and page down keys on the device.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the most requested features for Freewite users, and how do you go about prioritizing? We have talked about prioritizing development. So, some of the most requested features, and then, on the flip side of that, why are some features that are requested, like copy and paste, not implemented when customers have asked? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I touched a little bit on prioritization. Again, I think we try to spend the majority of our time on the core writing experience, and even more specifically about writing productivity. And so if you think about something like copy and paste, is that a valuable writing tool? Yeah, of course. But is that going to help someone's writing productivity? My argument would be no. And so that belongs in the editing portion of the writing experience, which we acknowledge is part of the writing experience and is part of our prescribed workflow, where you draft first, edit later. It's just not something that we want to have on our device. There's also other reasons too, like the e-ink screen, for example, has latency built in. And so for you to do really precise movements, especially cursor movements, and which is what you would need to do, generally speaking, with copy and paste, it's not that great of an experience. And so there's always a question of, well, could we add this feature? Of course. Would people have a good experience with it? Probably not, even if we did an amazing job. And then of course, and then even the question before that, which I already mentioned, which is like, does this improve people's writing productivity? And so for something like copy and paste, I just don't see that ever coming to our products, at least in their current sort of format. There's other things that are maybe more borderline. And these are the things that we're thinking about how we can add them really thoughtfully. Again, acknowledging that there's no features are free, not just in development time, but even if it's something that just adds confusion for people. I think one of the beauties of the product is that there's so little you can do on it. And so it subconsciously doesn't force you, it just subconsciously encourages you to write. And we get these comments all the time. We get these reviews on our website. They're like, what is this sorcery? I don't understand how this works, but it's working. And I will give away the secret. It works because we don't have any of that stuff. And even though it seems like those would be free features, they're not free. They are things that add to the confusion. They add to people's uncertainty around what they should be doing. We've heard this millions of times. When people open Word, the most popular writing software probably of all time, there's that bar, right? What do you do first? Pick a font, right? Do you like create a title, right? Like all that stuff is just noise in the writing experience. It's not contributing to creative writing. It's not contributing to your writing productivity. So that's maybe a slightly extreme example, but again, it's all along that spectrum. And I think the more kind of the harder we take that line, the more writing productivity we can squeeze out of this thing. And that's what I think people are feeling when they're not sure how it's working. More features. What features should I talk about?
Well, I think that was good. What about
let's talk about printing.
Sure, let's talk about printing.
We don't get that question as much anymore, but we used to get that a lot. Why can't you print from the product? And this is the perfect example of, not that I think printing is bad. I actually really like printing. I like the idea of being able to print stuff. I think reading on a printed page is vastly superior than on your screen. You catch errors immediately. I don't know exactly how that works, but it does. And so I come from a background where, yeah, if you really want to proofread something, you got to print it out. So I love the idea of printing, but the problem is that the printing experience is terrible. And for whatever reason, we just haven't figured out how to make printers universal and not frustrating to use. And so again, the question is, would we want to introduce a potentially very frustrating experience that we can't control to the product? And so far, the answer to me is no. Although every year I watch sort of what's happening with printing, and I'm like, maybe one day. We'll see. And of course, could we make our own printer? I suppose, but would that be worth it? That's a big effort. And, maybe one day, but not in the current pipeline, just to be clear.
Sure. What about on the software side? Are there any plans to introduce more customization options, different fonts, line spacing, themes, theme packs, those types of software initiatives?
Yeah, this year has been interesting. I think next year is going to see a lot of software updates. We are doing some team changes. We're doing some prioritization. This year was all about making the platform more robust, and we did that. And I feel really good about where Postbox is at right now. We added a bunch of what I'd call safety features. So sort of in these unusual cases where people shredded drafts on their computer, didn't realize it, were disconnected on a device, continued writing on their device, and then later connected and then found out that all that draft was gone. We now warn people when that happens and allow people to recover those drafts, even though we tell people ahead of time when you shred something on Postbox that it's going to be removed from your device. Again, we're trying to build in these extra safeguards. So for people that do make legitimate mistakes, which we all do, they can still recover. And so we added a whole bunch of features around that. We've had really good feedback, i.e., no requests for recovery since then. No, so I think where we're at on the syncing side and Postbox reliability side is really positive. I think also what that allows us to do is to sort of build on it and add some more of these, I'm going to call them quality of life features. We've got some fun ones. We've got some things that I think would be really useful. So yeah, we're going to work on it. I think next year is the plan. I'll plug also, we have an open senior/staff software engineer role. So if you know anyone or are that person, would encourage you to apply.
Great. How about on the hardware side? Introducing any new hardware? There's a bunch of questions about special editions, ghosts, special edition colors. Pink comes up quite a bit. You want to talk about any future plans on hardware side for Freewite?
Yeah, we have some products in active development. We have some new stuff. We have some existing stuff. Look, I think it shouldn't be any surprise that we are working on development all the time. One thing that I'm really excited about, and I'll tease here, is that we're working on our first Bluetooth mechanical keyboard that you can use with your computer. Something that we've actually been working on for years and years. We even started to pre-sell it back in, I think, 2021, so years ago. And we shut that down because it just wasn't feeling right. But we have something new that's going to shock and wow everyone that's focused on the writer. So I'm really excited about that. So stay tuned. But yeah, I think we look at the special editions. The thing with the special editions that I tell everyone on our team is, like, it almost takes as long as building the product from scratch. Every time, even though it might just be a color, we have to pick the colors, we have to sample the colors, we have to go back and forth, we have to make sure. So, and we're trying to do something that's, more than colors. We're trying to do more curated, interesting experiences. I love the idea of making things really opinionated. I acknowledge that our core product line is opinionated in certain ways, but it's also sort of a blank canvas. Having a black product with white keys is a little bit of a blank canvas, and I get that. And so the reason I like doing the special editions is that it allows us to do something quite unusual. And again, I think there's an interesting perspective, I think, that sometimes people in the community talk about, which is we don't like this customization, or we don't like people opening up their product, or we don't like, I don't know, customizing their products for themselves. That's not true. Just to be clear, I love it. I see what people are putting on Reddit. They're covering their travelers. That doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I love it. I love the idea that people feel comfortable and feel connected enough with their product that they're customizing it to what makes them, spark joy. These are products that are supposed to be products or tools for your emotional expression. And so if those are ways that you feel that you can express, great. And so I think like that's how I like to think of the special editions. It gives us the product and engineering team and marketing team just this canvas to do something kind of unusual that, yeah, it's definitely not for everybody, but it's fun. So that's a little bit of the special edition side. We're working on some stuff for sure. Can't tease that too much, but stay tuned.
Great. Yeah, there's excuse me. There's some question about competition. There's new distraction-free devices popping up from ZeroWriter or BYOK. How do you personally think about Freewrite versus some of those other offerings in the market? And what do you think sets Freewrite apart?
Yeah, it's been fascinating. We launched this concept 10 years ago. There's really only ever been one product kind of like ours, which is the King Jim Palmera line. And I say kind of because they never marketed as distraction-free writing tools. They're a Japanese company that primarily sells into the Japanese market. And so us being a US domestic company with a completely different positioning, it didn't really feel like competition. Our biggest competition was sort of a Chromebook. And to me, that's no real competition for people that are serious about distraction-free writing. Yeah, there are some new products. There's some DIY products. There's some non-DIY products. Great. Love to see it. I think everyone's sort of attacking what this need is in a slightly different way. And I'd like to think that the market is plenty big enough to support all of us. We have a pretty big head start, but that doesn't mean we're going to be resting on our laurels. Like I said, we have lots more to do, lots more exciting product work to be done. And look, like I said, I think everyone has different opinions on what they think would work for them. So we've taken the route of dedicated distraction-free writing devices. They're all in one. They connect to the cloud. They're part of this 1-2 step process where you draft top to bottom, edit later. Other people, maybe they don't fully grok that, or maybe they don't care, or maybe they don't want to use that process. And so there's other tools for them. And that's fine too, right? People are using their phones with Bluetooth keyboards. If that works for you, I think that's great. And this is part of the reason why sometimes people get upset that we don't listen. And I say, well, it's not that we're not listening, but what you're describing is something that's different than what the product concept is. And so if we were to change the product to do what you want, that's just a completely different product. It might seem like it's just sort of a tweak here or there, but it's quite different actually for something that it may seem like a small change. So yeah, rock on.
Yeah, great. These are a couple of kind of miscellaneous, kind of rapid fire things. Curious, we had a couple questions around how the material choices and appearance of the Hemingwrite came together. I think they meant Hemingwrite in its current state with green keycaps and metal handle.
Yeah, I think so. The Hemingwrite version, of course, is connected to Ernest Hemingway and his legacy. He has a legacy of being in war, being a fisherman, living during a certain time. And I think we were just trying to capture some of those elements with the polished aluminum housing. And just to be clear, all of our smart typewriters are made of the same material. They're all aluminum. The other ones are just painted. And the Hemingwrite is bare. I think there's something kind of nice to that as well, that this is just like a raw aluminum. I mean, it's buffed and polished, but it's a uncoated product. I think Hemingway was known for his direct language, for being a bit raw maybe sometimes. And I think just trying to, piece together different elements of his personality and his writing. Green being this color of like military color, and it all just kind of feeling like it came from a certain time period. And so that's where it came from. And I just love the polished aluminum look. I think it really pops, and it just feels substantial.
Great. We had a question. I just bought a unit, but I'm afraid to learn how to use it. What should I do next?
Don't be afraid. Don't just try it. And actually, you don't even need to learn how to use it. Seriously, I know that sounds maybe a little bit silly, but the entire writing experience on the device was designed so that you could start writing right away. And so one of the really unusual pieces of the user experience, or how people were intended to use the product, is that when you turn on the product, there's these couple screens that say welcome. You press the new plus new key to introduce people how to create a new draft. That's why we do that. And then you can just start writing. Most products, most electronic products, especially products that have a cloud piece, they require you to log in. You got to connect to the Wi-Fi. You got to log in. You got to create an account. You got to update the firmware. We very specifically did not want to do that. We wanted to give people a way to get to writing as quickly as possible. And so as soon as you turn on the product, you can start writing. And then when you're ready, when you're done writing, presumably, you can connect to Wi-Fi, you can create an account, you can start the syncing, you can set up your keyboards, you can do all that extra stuff. But we very specifically wanted people to get to write right away. And so look, you don't even need to learn how it works. If you know how to type, you know how to use it. You can figure out the rest later.
Great. Yeah, and I'll just make a plug for our guide, the free Set Your Story Free Writer's Guide to Freewrite. This is the paperback version that's coming soon, but there will be a cost for the paperback, but we do give this away for free. It's on our website at getfreewrite.com/guide. You can download the EPUB, the PDF, and there's workflows, examples, how to get the most out of your free write there. So for anyone new or existing in the audience, that's a great place to start. Okay, how to send your writing to your own email or to someone else.
So you can press the send key. All of our products have a send key. The intent of the send key was not for people to be using it all the time. I'll just say it again. Of course you can. We don't have a limit. I think we do have a rate limit. You can't press it 10 million times, but that's how you can quickly send a draft to yourself. It was more like, okay, how do I get this one draft out? Maybe I'm not near my computer. Maybe I don't have my Dropbox app on my phone. How can I get this draft out and maybe send to somebody for review or just have a copy of it? So that's the purpose of the send key. And then we extended that functionality with Freewite Plus. So you can join Freewite Plus. It's $4 a month. We can talk about Freewite Plus a little bit too, but with Freewite Plus, you can customize the email that it goes to. Should we talk about Freewite Plus? Maybe we should.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think
that was good.
Was that coming up?
It was.
It's happening now.
It's happening now. I'm doing it live.
Plus. Why does it exist? Why do we make Freewite Plus? How do we decide what features go in Freewite Plus and not? So the way I think about it, and the way that we've tried to segregate the features, is these are all not just quality of life things, but things that I think are quite specifically not critical to the creative writing process, and a place for us to put development time into things that people are actually willing to pay for. And so there is a real cost to maintaining our software and to adding new features. It is very, very, very far from zero. I think it's almost certainly safe to say we've spent more on software development than we have on hardware development, believe it or not. And so we've always had a free plan for the longest time. At some point, we have to hire more engineers and we want to do more stuff. So how do we do that? We can sell more product, which we're still trying to do. But the better way, I think, is to incentivize us internally, I think, to be willing to invest in it through a premium plan, which is what Freewite Plus is. And look, it's $4 a month. It's not a huge sum, but we want to continue to invest in it. And again, if that ever becomes a really big thing, or even as it is now, it's something that's meaningful enough that we'd say, okay, like we can keep investing in our software no matter what, right? I think one of the traps for other hardware companies, and this is a little inside baseball, is when you do everything for free, software is sort of like the easiest thing to pare back on, right? Because nobody's paying for it. And so it's really easy to just from like a management perspective and say like, they'll be fine. Like, we don't need these, reliability engineers. We don't need right. We don't need as much testing, or we don't need it, right? So I think there's actually a really positive incentive structure by having a paid piece of the plan and allowing us to continue to invest in some of these extra things that people want that are not core to the creative writing process. Acknowledging that we're still going to invest in sort of the infrastructure too. So we're going to continue to invest in the core writing experience, the syncing, the reliability. But for like a lot of like sort of like customization types of feature requests, where it's like, oh, I have this specific use case and I want to be able to do this. That's where we're going to end up putting it into this Freewite Plus plan. And of course, we still want to hear from people, like, what are those things? We have some ideas, we have some stuff on the roadmap, but if there's things that people are looking for, love to hear it. What was the question before Freewite Plus came up?
We were talking about how-tos, and that was how to send your email, send your writing to your own email or someone else's. So Freewite Plus kind of spun out of there.
So that's what I think I covered it. So right now, Freewite Plus, just to be clear, there's really two major features. You can customize the email that you're sending to, and you can upload drafts from outside of the sort of Freewite Postbox ecosystem. People have always been able to move drafts from within the system, and now we're allowing people to sort of upload drafts from externally. So that's what Freewite Plus is currently made up of. Great. I like to say this. Colin doesn't like me saying this, but you don't need it. we don't expect you to need it. That's okay. It's an augmentation to your writing experience for people that have a very specific workflow. And we've had a lot of success with people using it. So again, I that's how we think of Freewite Plus. If we think of a feature that we're like, oh, people need this to do the workflow that we want people to do, that goes in the main plan. That's free.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Thanks for getting through that. We got 10, 15 minutes left here. Let's turn our attention towards future plans. There's quite a number of questions about, what does the future hold for Freewrite? Where does it go from here? Let's start there. I mean, what does the future hold for Freewrite? Where do we go from here? There's a handful of questions about product and software, but maybe touch on those as well as maybe the higher level idea about where where the brand Freewrite can actually range.
Where does Freewrite go from here? Freewrite's a company to support people's writing productivity. That's what Freewrite's about. We have a pretty full product line of dedicated distraction-free writing devices that are products from $300 to $1,000. I'm saying that because we have no plans to make a fourth in that line. Things that we haven't refreshed in a while will get a refresh eventually. I'll just say this out loud. I mean, there will be no Traveler or Smart Typewriter refreshes happening within the next 12 months. But of course, those are things that we're working on. We are working on software that will happen in the next 12 months. I think what we're focused on, again, is asking ourselves, how can we support people's writing experience? We still operate in a relatively small piece of this writing experience. However, there's still a lot of ideas that we haven't been able to execute on from time and resources standpoint. So I want to continue working on our security, on our usability, on battery life, on performance, on all the things that people care about and people have been talking about. Those are our priorities too, just to be clear. And again, we've always sort of fashioned Freewrite as a brand, but also this platform, thinking across product segments. How can we do more to sort of support products working well with each other? That's something, of course, that we're working on as well. And and working more directly with writers. I think that's something that we've done much better over the past year with Annie joining the team, especially being a published author herself. She's been talking with lots of folks, and that's been a great experience for everyone. So I think we're still, I mean, this is the thing that I keep thinking back to, which is, yes, we're in our 10th year. And if you would have asked me when we first started, like where we would be here, I would have thought either we would be like the market would have been overwhelmed, like saturated with 10 million different kinds of like distraction-free tools, or we'd be dead. And we're sort of in this other place where it's like, it almost feels like we're still at the beginning, right? Where we're just starting to see a few other products sort of come into this market. And we still have tons of ideas that we've thought about for years that we're just now getting going on. So I think there's just so much more opportunity to support writers and people that are looking to express themselves. And that's how I think about where we're trying to go.
Great. Is there any tech you're geeking out on, or any emerging technologies you're really enthusiastic about? Might be Freewrite related or might not be.
Tech I'm enthusiastic about. How
about some of the ebook readers? And yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I love tech. Colin, you know this. I'm constantly dropping links about tech news into our company Slack. Yeah, I don't want to. Certainly watching what else is going on in the e-ink space. We have a close relationship with e-ink. But I think, what am I most, I don't know. I have to think about that one more. What am I playing with? Got all kinds of stuff around me.
Have you seen the new Remarkable Color 3? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have that yet, or?
No. I haven't played with it yet. Look, they spent 4 years making this product. I'm sure it's awesome. I know what it takes to make e-ink do what they're doing, and it's a lot of work. So kudos to them. That's it. That's amazing. I think, there's a lot of color e-ink stuff. I was like hesitant to say it because then everyone's gonna be like, well, are you guys having a color e-ink thing? Watching the products and the parts, the components, I should say. We don't have any plans for color e-ink stuff, but I think it's really cool technology.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, those are the questions we had. Adam, is there anything you'd like to leave us with before we break? Is there any question you had, or anything from reading through the comments that people left that you like to tackle?
I feel like I'm going to peruse the live chat and see if there's anything that people want to chat about.
That's a great idea. Why don't you do that? In the meantime, I'm going to read a little bit of housekeeping and we'll come back to those.
Sure.
So first, if you wrote in about an issue or a problem you're having with your device, thank you. Let's contact our support desk, and that's through the email hello@getfreewrite.com. We'll get you sorted there. Next, we've partnered with Scrivener. So, one of the most popular writing and editing software on the planet, on a giveaway. We're giving away 1 traveler and 6 Scrivener licenses to 6 different people. That contest runs through November 8th, and you can visit it on our homepage. It's the promotional banner bar right below as you scroll on our homepage. So getfreewrite.com and definitely sign up for that. We are also currently running a promotion on Alpha. You can receive $50 off an Alpha with the code HelloWrite. That offer expires in just another week, so October 31st. So you can find that code on our website. Also, obviously, November is coming up. We once again have our Nano leaderboard up. So if you're a Freewrite user or a Sprinter user, make sure you opt in so that you can play along there. Visit postbox.getfreewrite.com to sign up. And we're once again we're running a giveaway on the Nano leaderboard. To participate, you just need to join the leaderboard. That includes making a public Postbox profile and then writing a minimum of 1,000 words in November. So I know the Nano goal is 50,000, and that's laudable and great. Just to be eligible for a promotion, it's 1,000. So before I extend any final gratitudes, I'll come back. Adam, was there anything that you saw in the show you wanted to comment on?
I like Brett's comment. It says, ironically, since writing on Freewite, I write too much and now the scripts are too long and it takes longer to produce. I love that. Sorry.
What an endorsement.
Yeah. Was there ever a time when you thought nobody will buy this, or you always know there was an audience? The product came into existence because people told us they wanted to buy it. And so on one hand, the answer has sort of been no, I never thought people would never buy it. However, that doesn't mean like I don't have doubts about it. And I'm still sort of shocked. I mean, we sell a good amount of product every day, and I'm just reminded and encouraged that this is still a thing worth pursuing. We're still a tiny company in the scheme of things. People love to compare us with much larger companies. We have a long way to go in terms of getting to that size. That being said, I think like, yeah, I feel honored and privileged that people still want to buy our products and think that they're useful. So, yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. I'm active-ish in the Reddit, and so you'll see me chime in from time to time. But feel free to ask questions out there. Maybe not to me directly because I may not answer immediately, but I'll try to chime in when there's information that I can provide that's useful. And yeah, thanks everyone for being part of our community.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, our gratitude for everyone joining us today. We appreciate you, your questions, your time. Thank you so much. Thank you to Annie for helping set up this AMA with the community, creating the questions and getting the chat going. Adam, thank you for sitting down for this session. So with that, we'll sign off and say thanks so much and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, y'all.